Welcome to Overcome, a mental health podcast. I'm your host, Travis White, and we are a safe place for you to tell your mental health stories. I'm very excited for today's guest. We are speaking with Thomas Brown. He is the author of 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey. How are you doing today, Thomas?
I'm doing well, Travis. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, same here. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And let's just go ahead and get started, and I'll just hand the microphone right over to you.
Yeah. I'm the author of 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey. It is a story about a 7,000-mile bicycle journey for suicide awareness and the healing power of art. Me and my traveling companion at the time, we rode our bikes, combined 7,000 miles, starting at the northern edge of the Golden Gate Bridge in Sausalito, California. And we traveled, we didn't do a straight line. We did like a giant W through the country and ended up at the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, an art retreat center in upstate New York. It took us about 7 months to do. The reason why it took us so long is, one, we didn't do a straight line. Two, we picked a few cities to rest and kind of enjoy. We didn't get as much enjoyment out of those cities. The further along we got into the journey, it was much more lounging, sitting in a back porch, sitting on a beach, just hanging out and enjoying it. And didn't get to go to a bunch of museums or anything like that and, experience what a city has to offer. We both did it to honor our brothers. My traveling companion, Zachary Chips, he was riding for his brother, Sean Chips, and I was riding for my brother, Mark Brown. Mark died in August of 2001. The book is pretty much just about how we came up with the idea for the bike ride, the journey itself, and then also importantly, the journey home and the processing of the experience. So I would say that by the time we did the bike ride, I had already navigated my trauma, worked with a therapist, and I was ready to go and just listen to other people and be there to first obviously share my story so that people know that I'm on the level, I'm the real deal, that I've had this similar experience and that I wasn't there to exploit them, and to then listen to their journey of their trauma, who they lost and everything that they dealt with from their community, from their friends, from their work environment, from law enforcement, and the tools that they might have picked up along the way. So that's pretty much my journey. It took 13 months to plan and train for the bike ride. It took 7 months to do the bike ride, another month and a half before I returned home from the bike ride, and then it took about 11 years to write the book, which was its own mountain to climb on its own.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. When that all happened with your brother, what did that grieving process look like?
Well, I wish I was 24 when it happened. I didn't have the greatest confidence in myself. I always knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't have the confidence or courage to set out to do it. I had a lot of codependency issues that I was dealing with, which got me in a lot of trouble. I was, had really weird relationships with friends and intimate partners. It wasn't really, excuse me. Oh my God. Hopefully that's the last one. Just struggled a lot with who I was as a person. So when I lost my brother, I was really more concerned about my parents at that time. I didn't have the tools in order to really deal with the trauma in the way, which was weird because out of all of my peers, I was probably the most open and comfortable with expressing my emotions. I wasn't afraid to cry. If I was upset about something, I was okay to say hey, I don't feel good. This doesn't feel good to me. So I just never, with all the things that I was dealing with, even before my brother's death, it wasn't as, I don't want to say socially accepted. It wasn't as socially accepted or as, comfortable to say oh, I'm depressed, I need professional help. Instead, I used my friends as therapists, and that exhausted them, and wasn't really good for the whole boundaries issue. So, and seeing how my brother's death affected my parents, my mom was the one who found him. It emotionally broke my father. I don't think he's been the same ever since. And it's totally understandable that like I just wanted to be supportive for them. And I didn't have the tools to take care of myself, let alone my elderly parents at the time. So it was a dumb move. And it took me a long time before I found myself into therapy. It took me a long time before I was like, hey, I suck at this and I need to figure out my issues. So I'm going to go find a professional who's had
Yeah.
training to help me with that. And I was grateful as soon as I did it. You know,
It's funny.
my
Funny how
brother
that
and I,
works.
one more thing, my brother and I
Go ahead.
we were kind of estranged for about 4 years before his death. And it wasn't until the last 4 months of his life that we started to like reconnect. The only person in my entire life that I was comfortable with boundaries, that where my codependency didn't, put me in a precarious situation, was with my brother. And I didn't like the way he treated me. I didn't like the way he treated some people. And when he tried to like treat me in that way, I was like, nah, I'm not having this. So we didn't really talk a lot for 4 years.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to kind of reconcile that relationship like 4 months before,
Yeah.
because I'm sure in a way that was helpful. I mean, I can't really personally speak to it, but
It was nice. It was nice to have some of the moments that we did have together in the end. But to be honest, like I don't regret that I didn't talk to him
so yeah,
as much as we did for those 4 years. I don't know. I can't tell you how it would have felt if we never had that conversation.
yeah,
I was never mad at him when he died either. It was some people, when they lose someone to suicide, there is a lot of like anger and resentment. I didn't really have that. There's times now, like my mom passed away almost 2 years ago. I'm caretaking with my partner for my father. Her and I are doing that. And, there's sometimes I'm just like, man, it'd be really helpful if there was another family member here to help me out.
to help out.
But it wasn't meant to go that way.
Yeah. So, like coming up to your brother's death, they say there's kind of two people. There's the type of person that you know that's coming, and there's the type that you have no idea that they're even thinking of anything like suicide related.
I
Which
think
one do you?
also like
Which
so
one?
this is 2001.
Yeah,
The real, even though there's been like pushbacks with the Andrew Tates and Joe Rogans of the world, I feel like, men having a space to share their feelings is really, it's become like a thing that's like more acceptable in a lot of circles in our society. And that's what like also like made it a little bit more comfortable for us when we traveled. Like 2010, 2011 was when like that was becoming more of a thing that was like open for men to do. A lot of men were still struggling with it. I mean, the majority of the people that we interacted with on our bike ride were women. um but um where was I going with that? What was your question? I'm sorry.
I said there's two. So there's usually people say there's two
Oh yeah,
types of
yeah.
people. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so like there was like back then with my brother, there just wasn't, that was like the farthest thing from our imagination. We never thought
yeah.
that it would something like that would happen. There's a lot of things that make sense about who he was before and his idea of what masculinity is. He's a very toxic masculine person. The way that he felt, this is what makes a man. For him, it was womanizing, and he was a womanizer, and he had two women that were his primary girlfriends, and he weaved, these lies together that from as an outside point of view, you're like, that's pretty impressive how you're able to use their own denial against them. It's also impressive that you don't feel bad about it, but impressive just in the way that like how he maneuvered and executed those things. but it wasn't cool at all. That was like where him and I had like we had a lot of grief. Like if I wasn't going to lie for him, even if I just didn't want to be a part of it, you know what I mean? Like I'll just, I don't know anything. He was like, I was a unaccounted variable in his mind. And, what started off his depression was that, or his open outward depression was that both those women left and he had no power. All of his illusionary power that he thought that he had was like gone. And instead of telling people that, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have done that, like I'm sad, I need help. I need professional help to like figure out like why I treated people like that, why I feel the need to try to manipulate things and control things. He told people that he was physically ill and that's why he was getting skinny. It's not because he was depressed, because, men don't get sad. And because he kept on, he wouldn't talk about it and he wouldn't find the like true help that he needed. And he continued, his skillful ability to lie, that eventually compounded and was the thing that killed him. I often say like, my brother killed himself. It was the way that he killed himself was the thing that killed him. But the thing that set it off to me was just the patriarchal matrix that is the foundation and backdrop of our society.
And I'm actually happy that we're getting to a point in our society where men can actually talk about it.
Yeah.
I know in Utah they've started this thing around here called "I Love You, Bro." I've never joined it, but it's like an open uh, group where men come and just speak about the things that are going on with their lives. From what I understand,
That's important.
yeah,
It's important for men to have a space like that. And that's the thing. Like, you got the Jordan Petersons of the world. It would be like, well, if patriarchy is such a thing, then why is it that men are the ones that die in combat? Why is it that men are the ones that are the leading group of people that kill themselves? Because patriarchy creates that environment for men to
yeah,
be in those stressful situations. You ding dong, you got a doctorate, bro. How is that so hard to like understand? And so, it's just as important for men to recognize that foundational tapestry of patriarchy and resist it, and to fight back against it, and to really, do some self-evaluation of where the hooks of that are in them.
yeah,
It's and it's not like a matriarchal society is something where men take a back seat. The idea of what we're good pushing forward is that like we both have like an equal say in how the environment is, how the society is shaped. So
yeah. But by the way, you do a good Jordan Peterson impression.
thank you,
I quite I enjoyed it.
I've been working on it.
I don't have any good impressions. So, what do you like? What signs do you think people should look out for like in a loved one that may be struggling with these types of things?
Emotional shifts in their character. It could be like outbursts. It can be being withdrawn, stopping to do some of the activities that they do, even if it's activities they did by themselves. Um, Outbursts could be anger. It could be crying. And for my brother, definitely he became really really sad, and it was obvious like he was sad and mopey, and like sometimes like the sign just isn't there. Like they'll be like, maybe you're dealing with someone who's very stoic and they just drop one little line and say something. It could also be like things that like they're trying to make the cleanup for their life a little bit easier, so maybe they'll give some things away to friends, they'll cancel any type of like subscriptions that they have, or they give people information that usually wouldn't need the information on how to deal with certain things if something happened to them, like bank or car payments and stuff like that. So it's just, it's the most important thing to do is that when you see somebody that is displaying any of this, is for us as their friend or their family member or their acquaintance is to like legitimately ask them, are you considering harming yourself? You know, like
Uh-huh.
it's not an invasive question. And even if they're like, no, what are you talking about? Like it's important to ask that question. And then trying to get, any types of, if they do say yes, try to get as all the anything that could be harmful, whether it's a firearm, knives, pills, get that stuff out of the house, rope, get that
Yeah.
stuff out of the house. And, there's a national hotline that you could text or call. And if you're concerned, you can always call that number yourself and be like, hey, I've got this friend. I need some advice. I need some references. This is where I live. And you should at least this should give you at least some information to get you started. You don't have to
Yeah.
wait for
And
the very last second of like, my friend's in crisis, at that point,
the
you
last
know,
second, it was too late. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And like, even if these questions are invasive, though, like, I think be invasive. Ask the hard question.
Being invasive is more important than like not being able to talk to that person ever again because they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the
I,
alternative.
during this past year, I had some medical problems where I started suffering from suicidal stuff. And it got to the point where one night I had to have my in laws come and like sleep, like trade off and sleep downstairs. Our main bedrooms are all upstairs, like
Yeah,
just a 2-floor house. And at first I thought, well, that's a little invasive. But at the same time, like I look back and I realized like they were doing that for me to keep me
yeah.
safe.
They're doing that for you. They're doing that for your family. They because that's just the thing. Like when a suicide happens, we often don't think about all the other people that it affects.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not talking about like the person who is suffering from suicide ideation and is in kind of like crisis, because like when you're emotional like that, it's hard to really like think about other people. So I don't say that as a slight. I'm just saying as like people who contemplate the concept of suicide and how it affects society, not people who are suicidal thinking about it, but
Yeah.
just people who are like, oh, suicide, like it affects so many people. Like I would say that because it affected me and how I navigate the world, it's affecting the people that I interact with. It's having a direct effect on like coworkers and stuff, even coworkers that didn't know me at the time that I lost my brother. Is because I've had those and hopefully I've done enough work on myself that the effects that I have on my coworkers or the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis is more positive now than it was in the beginning. That like because I've had that experience, I am open to asking somebody, even like a coworker, like, hey, are you thinking about harming yourself? When I ask you, how are you doing? Because you look a little down in the dumps, I'm not asking about how you think about the weather. Like, I'm not asking that to be polite. Like, I'm legit, like, yo, I'm here, talk to me.
Yeah,
Like,
you're being sincere.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We like, I don't give a shit if we have to be on the desk in 5 minutes. Talk to me. And if you're really in a hurry, like, let's make time later today to go for a walk and chat. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, that to me, that one life is important. Like it doesn't matter who you are.
Mm-hmm. Totally. It's a heavy situation. Millions of people attempt every single year. We lose close
Yeah.
to 47,000, like what I think it's like up to like somewhere between 30 and 40 a day. 19
Yeah.
of them are service men and women. It's wild, man. It's
Yeah. It's just
definitely like it's an issue, and like as I kind of like allude to in my book about my own personal journey, but I'm working on some follow up books that are more philosophical. To me, like one of the aspects of suicide or of mental health that isn't really, I'm not going to say it's the cause for negative mental health or the cause of why people end up taking their lives, but I think it's something that people don't think about, that researchers haven't really got into, and that's the importance of both overall awareness and cultivating self-awareness, having an understanding of who you are, why you do things, the thing that you do, why you respond and react, why you respond emotionally to certain things, or how you have outbursts, or how you compartmentalize and how you process stuff. And it's important to know all that. Do you need to have some medication to help you get through a certain rough patch in your time? Are you predisposed because you're just born different and you were wired different than other people, so you need a little bit more of assistance, or just is meditation what you need? Is having learning strict boundaries and detoxifying your environment, not from like just foods or what you're drinking, but from people. People are always like, oh, like you gotta alkalize your water, and you should be eating raw greens. Are you hanging around with assholes? Like it's important to detoxify that, and understanding who you are also puts a lot of accountability on you too, because to me, no matter what, I don't mean to sound like I'm harping on religion or anything like that, because that has its place and it's a viable element of somebody's, state of being and community in their lives. But to me, the only game in town is awareness. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know why you are, if you don't know all the pieces that make up who you are outside of every single human institutional conditioning and influence, like, then you have an entire world of people telling you who you are and who you should be. And if that goes against your foundational nature, even if you haven't given yourself time to understand what that foundational nature is, it still exists on a subconscious level. And if like all of the influences in your life are forcing you and dictating you to go against that, well, that's a problem. And that's going to lead to mental health issues, and could even lead to
Yeah, and that's very well said. I think that's like one of the most well said things that I've heard like in a while. Because it's sometimes I feel like we as people don't spend enough time on ourselves to figure out who we really are and be that aware.
well, I mean, it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
cradle to grave, and there is no finish line. There is no summit. Every single time you're climbing that mountain and you think you see the summit, you get to the top and there's a massive, like mountain that
Start
you
going
got to
back.
scale, another wall you got to scale. So it just keeps on going, going and going and going and going up. And that's just, when I talk about awareness, I'm like, who are you outside of the state? Who are you outside of family lineage? Who are you outside of the faith you were raised? Who are you outside of the political affiliation you were born into? Who are you outside of like the color of your pigmentation? Who are you outside of your sexual orientation? Who are you outside of your gender? Who are you outside of your able-bodiness? Who are you? Who is the one that is observing the question of who are you that is being asked? Like, it's important to like get deep into those questions. Like, we are sitting on a organic rock that is living because it's the right amount of distance from a self-contained, perpetual, like self-sustaining atomic explosion hurtling through the darkness, like,
Hmm.
and somewhere along our historical path, our historical story, somebody BS to all of us into like, you're right, your reason here is to make sure that I am successful, and you got to pay all these taxes and you got to pay all these bills, and like all of the problems that our world has is self-conflicted. And that's
Hmm.
because we have an entire world of people that don't know who they are, and they're being ruled by ideology that was created by somebody else
Hmm.
thousands of years ago. Sometimes it modifies itself along with the technology that we have. And I just think, a true journey of self discovery, like, not only opens one up to like self empathy, self love, But like the more that you start to feel that for yourself, you can't help but have it for other people, no matter what they are, no matter how they walk through this world, no matter who they love, no matter what they look like, what they call God. Like
Yeah.
I think all of that stuff is super, super important for us to look at. I'm a heathen. I walked across the country a few years before the bike ride with a group of progressive Christians, and the reason why I walked with them is because I could still, as somebody who was an outsider, understand what they were trying to do and agree with a lot with what they were doing. I can read different religious texts and see what's the moral of the story that they're trying to
Story.
tell. Stories are important. We're human beings are story making machines because we're asking the same questions, like who am I? What am I doing here? What is the point of all the chaos that exists around us?
Yeah. And you made me think of something. You mentioned like trying to figure out who we are while we're being told what to do, pretty much.
Mhm.
I always tell my wife, I was like, knowing what I do know now, like knowing what I know now, I feel like we are raised to work for the man. And I'm just to the point where, damn it, I don't want to work for the man anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just like the one thing about all isms, you know, whatever that ism is, it doesn't really account for the variable of the worst compulsions of humanness. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing about that is that like most of the worst compulsions of humanness is just a learned trait. And it's learned because they were treated a certain way. They felt that they needed to protect themselves because of that, and then they do this without actually like going deeper into who they are and why they allowed. Were they old enough to allow somebody to treat them like that? Did they have no power because whatever happened to them when they were a child, and they just like got hard rather than understand what that trauma was? Did they allow themselves to work through it and to understand it and why it affected them the way that they did? Or do they just become like, you know I need revenge, I need to protect myself, I need to build a wall around me, bridges are for cowards?
Yeah. So thinking back to like time that you've done therapy, was there like any type of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Therapy, like, heck, it's like I've just hit a brick wall.
No, it's okay. Like, what were some of the things that I learned in
Yeah,
therapy?
what were some of the techniques that you learned that actually really helped you out, like to grieve with the loss and stuff?
I mean, just what my therapist did is that she took me on a journey of self. I went there because I was realizing that, I was finally starting to get courage to seek out the things that I was curious about in life and find a craft and work towards it. But I sucked at my intimate relationships. I was still ruled by that codependency of wanting
Mhm.
someone to love me. And because of that, being in horrible relationships with people that treated me like trash and brought out the worst impulses in me. So I went to a therapist and she kind of like talked to me for like a couple times a week for like at least a month. And she just learned me. You know what I mean? She's like, tell me
Mhm.
about your parent, tell me about your mom, tell me about your dad, tell me about your brother. Oh, your brother killed himself? What was your relationship like? What was he the oldest? Was he the youngest? Like, where were you in age? Like, what kind of relationships did you have when you were growing up? Intimate ones with partners or ones with your friends and all of that. And then finally, like, and I went there because like why am I stuck with this woman that why can't I let her go? And like we just went through like she was like, okay, I'm gonna help you figure yourself out. So it was really like her learning me, kind of like getting an understanding of some of my behavioral patterns, and then just like showing me how to like figure myself out. And the way that I really started was just with like breathing, controlled breathing. It can kind of like chill you out a little bit if you do it long enough. It's not a fix all, but what breathing meditations have really done for me is like put me in tune with my body. And as I'm getting older, that's more and more important because like, I still can have emotional outbursts and all that, and like breathing into it, can kind of, if I'm being honest myself, will like opened me up to like why I did that. But more so as I'm aging, it's getting into the aches and pains. How am I sitting at my desk? Like, how am I moving my body through the day? And breathing just really puts you in touch with you. Like, your brain's job is to compute. So people first think of meditation as like, oh, I'm trying to get to like nirvana, to just shut my brain down and not be thinking about anything. But that's not really, I don't know how possible that is. Like, if you don't live on a mountaintop somewhere.
Yeah,
And
you're
even
right.
then, you're going to be thinking about wind, rain, how you're going to
Something.
prepare your meal. Um, so like really like the breath was just like, I'm not going to try to like silence my mind because my brain's job is to compute,
Uh-huh.
but get in touch with my body. And my body always tells the truth. Your brain, your ego can always BS you. Your body will always tell you the truth. Your body will tell you if you're excited. Your body will tell you if you're anxious. Your body will tell you if you're frightened. Your body will tell you if you're exuberant. Your body will tell you like, hey, I don't trust this person in front of me.
Yes.
Like your body like speaks to you, and like that's like the first thing. And once you could start, you give yourself some time with like breathing meditations. And I do more of it like I'll do it like a couple times in my office. I just like kind of like turn off the lights and just like go inward for about 10 minutes and just sit there and breathe. I also do it a lot like right when I get in bed at night. But the more and more you do that, you start to pick up your body's tells. And it's not like you're gonna like, at least for me, I don't recognize those tells all the time when they're happening. But the more and more that I do like breathing exercises and I start to like get in touch with my body, like where am I holding tension? Why is this part of me like ache? What's going on? Like when I'm in situations and I'm open, because that's what the practice is just like breathe, doing it constant. Like you're like when you would go to practice for like any type of like athletic sport or, playing instruments or anything like that, or any type of like thing, that skill set that you have, you like constantly practice at it. You just start to like, oh, my body's the thing that tells me what's going on. My body's communicating to me how I'm feeling. And like, once I like own that, like, I'm like, okay, why is that happening? What am I thinking about? Do I got something going on that's like that's tripping me out that I got to do later today or tomorrow? Did I say something to somebody and I kind of feel bad about it, feel a little guilty about it, or is this person in front of me driving me up the wall? So that was kind of like the foundation of all the stuff that I've learned. And what's cool about like your own practice of awareness is that I can't write you a 10-point thing of what to do. I can tell you some things that I've done. You can try them out, but really you're writing your own book. You're writing your own playbook.
Yeah, you have to figure out what works for you. But you remind me of something my therapist said. He told me that you have to learn to recognize like what your body is telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it takes a bit of practice. And he's like, and sometimes you might have to stop in the middle of the room and completely stop what you're doing, just so you can recognize what your body's trying to tell you.
Yeah.
He's like, and this will help you get over that anxiety. This will help you curb that depression that you're feeling at the time or whatever it is that you're going through. And sometimes like my wife has called me out, like saying like, okay, well, not really called me out, but she'll look at me funny because I'll literally like moments of frustration, whatever. I'll just kind of sit there, like look off to the side. She's like, you're doing something weird. I'm like, no, like I'm trying to learn how to recognize like the thoughts that are going through my head
Yeah.
or this weird thing that I'm feeling so I can know how to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah. 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 And it takes practice, man. And as we get older and we have new experiences and new relationships with people, depending on where we work, people come in and out of our lives, or, the people that come in and out of your lives, just like through your children, like you're going to have different experiences and it's going to allow you to kind of like evolve or readjust some of your tactics a little bit, because we're constantly changing, we're constantly experiencing new things. And so it's just important to like stay on top of that.
Yeah, and I want to go back to your book a little bit here. You said that you traveled with a guy that had lost his brother to suicide as well.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how you guys like met. Like, what are the odds of that
Well, that's
happening?
where
It's
it gets
just
a little weird. That's where like I love to converse about the mystery of the universe. I'm a big fan of synchronicity. I don't know if it's real or if it's just, my brain trying to put connections there that aren't really there. But Zach and I, we both worked for Parks and Recreation for the same municipality. And I was working at the park that my brother had worked at before he died. Zach was just filling in one day. Him and I had like known of each other in the city because it was like a small community. And then we kind of like, that was the first time we worked together, and we really enjoyed each other's company, talking about like uh, books and music and all that stuff. And he had like really cool tattoos, really good like art, like tattoos. Like the artist, the tattoo artist who did it was like amazing. Uh, and so we decided like we wanted to hang out. And the first night that we met up at a coffee shop, and we were reading like the same book, which the Ishmael trilogy. He was on. We weren't reading the same book. We were reading the same trilogy, and I was reading the second book, and he was finishing the third book in the series, and it's the Ishmael series from Daniel Quinn, which he's all about like understanding narratives and stories, not just personal ones, but nationalistic ones or cultural ones or species stories. And he gets that. It's a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. Ishmael, the story of B, and My Ishmael is the trilogy. And so that we were like, that's weird. And so we just started talking. He's like, so what have you been up to lately? And I told him about therapy. He's like, oh, what got you into that? So I told him about my brother and all that. And like a few hours later, he tells me he lost his brother to suicide. And then like a couple days later, I find out that Zach has the same birthday as my brother. They're both September 7th babies. And I was just like, man, this is weird. Like we're reading the same book. We met at the park that my brother like was working at when he died. You have the same birthday as my brother, and we both lost our older siblings to suicide. Like what is like we're there? And I was like,
it's
there's we're meant to do something. We're not just meant to like drink beer, play basketball, and chase babes. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's not what we're meant for. We're meant to like we were brought together to accomplish something. And we did. That was like in early 2010. We had a conversation about doing the bike ride in June. This is like January 2010 is when we first started hanging out. June 2010 is when we've had the first time we have the idea for the bike ride. And then mid February 2011, we make the decision that we're going to do it. And we start our bike ride on March 1st, 2012. So it was like fast.
yeah. I would say it, I I totally believe that the universe like brings people together because like the
Totally.
odds of that happening, it's
But
just bizarre to me.
that's also another thing that's important about awareness is that pay attention to those carrots,
Hmm.
and those carrots come a lot, and you can just ignore them, or you can be like, I want to know where that carrot's leading. I'm gonna follow that a little bit,
Hmm.
Be playful with the world around you. Be aware. Pay attention. Don't just like you know think twice about it and laugh it off.
Yeah, it's just I just can't get over like the odds of that happening.
Yeah.
Just all it's crazy to me.
And Zach was like the first person that I had met that had been that I'd known. I didn't know if I knew anybody else that had lost anybody else to suicide. And the fact that and this is like 9 years later. I lost my brother in August 2001. Zach and I started hanging out in January of 2010, and he was the first person I had met that lost somebody to suicide, especially like an older sibling. So it was a very profound connection.
And how do you think we can open up conversations about mental health and suicide prevention?
I think you just need to be honest with your state. You know, you don't come out and just be like, I'm depressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, you find ways to like bring the conversation up. Let people know that you're a safe space to talk about that stuff. And that's always one thing that I always, even at work, like I ask people how they're doing, and people know that I wrote this book. I work at a library too. So, you know, people know that about me. And I mean, I am a supervisor and I have like 7 people that work under me. When I'm in my office, I usually have one lamp under like the little shelf drawer. That light is on. And then I have like one of those atmospheric like ceiling lights on with like auroras. And then I'm playing weird music. And I have a poop emoji pillow in one of the chairs in my office. And I tell every new hire, you know, when you come in here, like consider this like the wellness room. We got weird music, we got weird lights. Like if you got anything going on with you, whether it's about work or your personal life, if you grab that poop emoji pillow and hold it to your chest, that's you telling me without saying anything that you have shit that you need to get off your chest. And so people like know that that's the safe space room to talk about those things. People can come in and they can cry if they have to cry. They can complain about things if they need to complain. They could vent about things that's going on in their personal lives. And, you know, that's
Yeah, that's cool that you've created a space like that at work because not everywhere has that. I can
no,
say that I
no.
can say
And
that where I work is not anywhere close to that.
when I became a supervisor, my primary, like the foundation of my supervisory like how I worked and navigated as a supervisor was all based on all the crappy supervisors that I had, like what not to do. You can still learn from people, whether you're learning something that is an important skill, or you're learning how not to do something, how not to treat people. And I've learned just as much from people that were horrible at their job as I have from people who are really good at their job. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. You gotta learn those lessons from the crappy managers, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. I'm never going to do that to another human being. Noted.
Yeah. I think I could probably write a book at this point in my life about like what not to do as a people manager.
Yeah, yeah. Totally. I mean, we still need to get our work done. Like, I still like it can't be a free for all, but like I want people to be
Mm-hmm.
happy and feel safe when they come to work. They're much more productive that way.
Yeah, that's very true.
Joy is more powerful than fear.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's like
It lasts longer too.
very true. And it's a manager that you can trust to actually
Mhm.
be open with and build that relationship with. You're going to work a lot better for them.
Yeah, and I always tell people like, yeah, I know that this is like the entry level position here at this institution, and I'm just going to tell you, shoot you straight, I'm going to ruin you for future employment. Like, you're not going to want to work for anybody else because most people suck. Sorry. Like, I'm going to encourage you to like upward momentum and movement. I'm going to create space and time once I know your position. Once I know that you know your job, I will create space and time and work with other supervisors so that you can do cross training. So if you want to leave, that's on your own.
But you'll always want to come back and work with me. That's that's a good that's a good thing to do, though.
Yeah. So,
So, what message do you want to give listeners that may be struggling with mental health or maybe know someone who is?
well, find your first and foremost, the very generic thing is just like it is important for you to go on a journey of self-discovery. Know thyself. This is not some journey that you're going to get to in a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade. Like this is a lifelong journey because even if you're really good at alienating people, there's always one person that you're stuck with from cradle to grave, and that's yourself. So you better get to know that person. You better get to learn that person. You better get to understand that person. Better get to like learn empathy and compassion for that person. That's the long-term thing. The short-term thing, find a community, find somebody, any way that you can get some type of like therapy help. Don't be afraid to ask for support. If you're away from your community, call that 988 number and get some resources. And just know that if you're in a dark forest of your mind, just keep moving forward and you will get out. You will make your way through the tree line and you will see sunshine again. If you hurt yourself and you do self-harm with the intention of leaving this world, you don't have the chance for an opportunity the next day. So I always say, just like hold out till tomorrow, and see what tomorrow will bring. And if tomorrow's shitty, hold out for the next day. You will, if you keep moving forward and you're attempting to understand yourself and you're attempting to like learn how to treat yourself positively, you will eventually get out of the dark forest. And it will be worth it when you do.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. It is worth it when you do.
Yeah.
I've been through some pretty dark paths, and climbing my way out sometimes has been rough, but it's always brighter on the other side.
I can't speak for an afterlife. I wouldn't do that, so stick around. See what's to come. All right.
Is there anything that we have not touched basis on that you'd like to bring up?
If you're interested in reading my book and learning about my wild and wacky adventure across the country, like, look, here's the thing. If you lost someone to suicide, there's a thread in there for you. If you're into like beatnik, weird, wild adventure, cross-country adventures, there's a thread in there for you. If you're into like weird mystery of life and mythology, there's a thread in there for you. If you're a movie and music nerd, there's a thread in there for you. And if you like all those threads, well, then it might just be something that you would enjoy. You can go to risephoenix.org. That's my website, and look for the book link and purchase 2012 Bicycle Odyssey. It looks like this. So, and if you purchase one and you're done with it, please leave a review on Goodreads or Amazon and pass it on to a friend.
Is there anywhere else you'd want people to find you, like any social media accounts or anything?
You can find all that stuff from risephoenix.org. I got a podcast called Inner Monologue that I do. It's like weekly or every other week. It used to be an interview show. Now it's just me talking about my life, processing the world, the things that I'm seeing, what it's like to be a caregiver, and like some projects that I'm working on. So each week, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about until I get on the microphone.
Oh, you do way better than I do, because I tried that kind of solo podcasting once before I started Overcome, and I lasted like 7 episodes, and then I'd get there and I was like, I don't even know what to speak about anymore.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like sometimes it's every week, sometimes it's every other week. Sometimes I'm blathering for 30 minutes, sometimes I'm talking for 15. I don't
Yeah.
I don't
So it
judge
just
it.
depends on, yeah.
Yeah, and I try to leave it open. I share a little bit about my life, and then I editorialize things that are happening in the world. And sometimes I'll do a movie review. Like I just saw a sci-fi horror film last night called Ash, and I described it as the coolest student film ever made. It's not a student film, but that's how it feels.
The feel you got from me.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's just like whatever, and sometimes I read a lot, so I'll recommend like a book, or I'll talk about a book and some of the things that I've learned from it. And I, like I said, I'm working on a follow up to 2012, which is more of like my personal philosophy about awareness and how it applies to mental health. So hopefully that will be coming soon, and I'll be talking about that a lot on the podcast.
Well, Thomas, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me and having an open conversation.
I appreciate it, Travis. This was fun. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful.
And thanks to all the listeners out there. Thanks for listening to Overcome a Mental Health podcast. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Overcome Pod. the best thing you can do for us right now is to go follow us, share our stuff, like our stuff, do all that fun stuff. And I said stuff way too many times right there, but
There's always stuff to do.
There's always stuff to do. Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time.